a trap! I warned you! I was a wall! I tried to warn you! The terrors of traps! Thank you. And that's my special co-host for this video, Admiral Akbar. And yes, this is the original Admiral Akbar. Mine is a head. No, I'm not like any of you other sick freaks out there that pull your action figures' heads off. I have no idea how his head came off. But I found this in a box of toys I'd acquired of my own. They've been set away for my son about 2 years ago. Don't know where his head went. Last time I'd seen him or played with him had his head on. Of course, that was a long time ago. I remember when my mother put it was one of those special toys where you cut all the UPCs off the backs of other toys and mail them in. And I remember her doing that, and Admiral Akbar showed up in a package. So, he's seen better days. That's what I'm trying to get to. But also, what have seen better days are traps in Dungeons & Dragons, because traps are one of the most stagnant and stale concepts in the game. And the reason I brought Admiral Akbar out here is to illustrate just how silly traps are. And they are so often silly because they don't mean anything. They are only there to have an ECL rating fulfilled, to have something to do with that first level ability of rogues, trap finding. That is not a good justification. Like Azaric says, the cold, uncaring universe. I'm not a huge subscriber in every form to that or to what he says there, but there should certainly be some degree and some elements of that. I think he's more extreme than my style, but I certainly can understand and appreciate what the meat and potatoes in that stew are. And a trap shouldn't just be there for the rogue to have something to do. Also, traps make the game very, very, very slow. If you're running one of those games where you are a butcher of a game master, and those are the game masters who typically like traps, and traps kill players, which is, well, an unfortunate thing, because getting killed by a trap is not fun, is not cool, and you, as a game master, have sort of wasted a concept there, and man, you really fucked yourself if you had a good player, if you killed off one of your star players. If it's one of your more minor players, well, okay. If it's your worst player, man, all right. But if you kill off one of your stars with a trap, boy, that can be the death of your campaign, because it's so unsatisfying, so unsatisfactory, and it doesn't go anywhere. There's nowhere to go with that. We can't come back and get revenge on the trap. If you're going to use traps, though, you have to make sure they make sense. Now, to do that, let's examine what we have here. The trap probably should be of a different ECL than what is standardly appropriate to characters. Do not feel it's a problem to put one that's lower in there. That's fine. There's no reason enemies, if they're going to try to use a trap, have to be great at building them. Maybe they can build like a level 2 trap and it's like a 10th level party. Well, that's what the enemies can come up with. And when the party just falls, oh, okay, well, that notion of ECL gets out of their head, and that's always a good thing to do, because it makes the game more fluid and more real. When the characters look at something, oh, that was ECL, and but they see that's not there, it just seems like, well, what was put together. And traps are very, very overused. Now, one of the big problems in a Dragons game is a lot of things are stale and stagnant. And you don't want to be a game master that's running that F- material. You want to bring that A game. Now, one of the ways that you can do it with traps, make sure you know who put it there, why they put it there, how they were able to get around it, what other things are in that dungeon or a ruin or whatever area that they're working in to have come in contact with this trap, and why, can they go from this one side of the trap and there's, a door down, there's like 18 zombies. Why isn't the trap set off? Now, unfortunately, in modules, often you will see traps there for absolutely no apparent reason, and they apparently up to a 3.5 were still there, because I played in some Eberron modules, and they had some shoddy, shitty traps in them. They were there for no other reason than to put a trap there, than to be, ooh, this is a cool trap. No trap is cool. It is only the way that they are used and what you get out of them that is cool, that is interesting, and it needs to be unique. Some of the traps, the way I'm going to use a trap, typically, now there are a few monsters, I might throw some minor ones in here or there. Kobolds like to use traps, so I'm going to put some traps for the kobolds, but I might have some insidious mastermind plotter sort of character. And this guy has a base, and we're building him up through the course of the game. And he uses minions and so forth. And the PCs are pursuing this boss. And when they're getting there, particularly in the case of Forgotten Realms, Cyric makes a great one for this because Cyric are going to build traps. But not always the best traps. But they also have a great deal of illusion power, and illusions work wonders for traps. Because, you can't just sit there and look at the ground, the pit traps. They walk right into it, boom, down they go. Of course, there are obviously ways around that. But, that's one way you can do it. Also, invisibility spells with continuous powers to keep them there can be another wonderful tool to use on traps. You just didn't happen to see the razor blades that were all over this wall that you start trying to climb on. Now, that's sort of the way I think that traps are going to be good. Don't use them everywhere. Use one villain, one insidious villain, and you put that villain over by showing they're smart. I like to look at running a game a lot of the ways that I see booking for professional wrestling in the 80s and the territory days. Now, one of the things they said is do not get heat on the referee because the referee will not draw money. Traps will not draw you money. If you put the heat on the traps, what difference does it make? Now, if you can take that heat and transfer it off to the villain, the traps are just an extension of this villain who's scheming and plotting and using these resources to keep the players always away because the villain doesn't want to risk him or herself in a direct conflict with the PCs and is happy to have minions and headquarters and traps and so forth to slow this person down. But if the traps become iconic of this one individual, just with a few other mixed up here and there, small ones, for kobolds or what have you, then, that's going to be something you're going to get more mileage out of in a game. But if you just randomly throw a sloppy trap in there, it's not going to work well. And I remember particularly playing in high school where you'd see the guy playing the rogue go, I search for traps here, and then I'll sit there and watch the game master. And the game master did not have a trap there. No chance. Not one. He had a trap there. No chance that game master had a trap. And all the game master go, and the rogue fails his roll, walks right through, trap goes off. There was no damn trap there. And then when the silly gibberish that the trap is, you could tell that was put together in the span of 3 seconds. Don't do that. Don't be that game master. Don't be sloppy like that. If there's no trap there, there's no trap there. Great things you can do are show, you want to highlight the advanced technology of an ancient civilization, perhaps dwarves or gnomes or something like that from 1,000 years ago, where the characters are plumbing into and attempting to plunder. You can show traps that are set off, man, like a 18th level trap, but it's all rusted, and you shear the gears and allow the players to really get in and explore it. And players love it. They love to grab in those cultural details of the past, and it makes that pop. It makes it come alive. It's like, oh, Dwarven Tomb, right? But when they see that those details, and that can be just one of them, you got to put more in there as well. But looking at how the gears work, explaining perhaps lost bits of technology from this old days of civilization, or perhaps it's different. A different sort of technology than that I expect. Or perhaps you just show them they weren't advanced, man. This is a real basic primitive idea, but they really had this quality stonework in here and such. So that's another way you can use traps. Use traps also, maybe when they miss it, have a trap that misfires and it barely opens. Maybe somebody ends up falling prone or something, or you take into 1 or 2 points of damage, but they look down and they see these horrible spikes beneath them, or this rusty cage that starts falling, and then it gets caught up. The gears don't go off. The trap misfires when it should have landed on them, and that you drop something like that on the players, go, ooh, all of a sudden they get more into it. They get more into the degree of believability. The suspension of disbelief is the key in running a game. And when doing that, and the players look up and they see that dangling trap up there, and make sure it doesn't come off as you're just being easy on them, but that, hey, traps don't always work. And if you throw just one of those out in the entire course of a campaign, the players go, it's pretty fair. And then you show them another trap that's been deactivated. Perhaps there's a pit trap there with the bodies of 2 people in them, either fresh, partly decayed, or just skeletal, and there might even be a little treasure in there. And they're looking down at this set-off trap. You show a set-off trap some point in the campaign. You show a trap that misfires and doesn't go through all the way when it should, and you show a trap that someone else has disabled or is just completely worn away by time. Then you take the rest of your traps and you put them almost exclusively on one character, this sort of mastermind plotter. Then Finally, show just one or two other random traps. Like, oh, traps are elsewhere, but they're more primitive. Maybe you're using them with your goblins or your kobolds, or maybe a group of gnomes that they're dealing with. They get caught up in like a snare or something like that. Or their ass gets snatched up in a bear trap. I mean, it could be. Another trap you can use, which I enjoy, are basically the floor collapsing, shooting off into a slide, shooting them somewhere, boom, boom, boom. You're describing everything really quickly, and all of a sudden, at the bottom, Rancor style, there's a monster there. Make it something different than that, so it's going to look completely different. You're like a black pudding or something, and just slides across the floor, and they're trying to like look at how they get away from it, because damned if ain't nothing scarier than ooze, at least in my mind. How do you fight like a vat of oil coming at you? How do you fight oil? It just eats you. So run from it. I always run from oozes. And you got that sliding across the room. The player's going to be panicked trying to get up, roll that initiative, have the thing start attacking them, just viciousing them. So they're having to force themselves to get up the walls and get away, and that's another kind of trap, because they're going into, the trap sort of mindset. Now they're flipped off into combat. You're flipping things around very quickly, and you're getting a good pace that the players are going to enjoy, and it's going to pop them. I like to use cursed items, particularly with that same meticulous planner. Follower of Cyric, for example, they could have in that stronghold that they know is eventually going to be taken over. Well, they've left a very bad cursed magic sword there, and you go, oh, magic sword, I have it, no, it's mine. And you get jacked because you grabbed the magic sword that was cursed, or the beads of strangulation. And don't go crazy with cursed items, but man, you place two of them. Say you're running a game for a year and a half long campaign, every week you play. You throw two cursed items in there, that's all you need. Put a trap on a treasure chest, you just need one. And the players will be looking at that sort of thing. But again, you don't want to trap them to death, because players every 5 feet, we get 20 roll, I roll a 20, wait, we get 20, and that person is going to keep making that search all through your entire dungeon, every 5 foot square, and it will get maddening. And you will think, why did I bog my game down to this point? And everyone else can be sitting there going, and you are losing your players, you're losing your credibility as a game master, you're losing your effect and ability to entertain them. Total party killing off with a trap is a great way to make sure that no one plays in your game again. These kind of games, like the modules that just have traps. To me, that's one of the worst sort of things, the worst waste of time you could ever indulge in. It's just silly to me. It doesn't. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. It just looks like a design to see how badass traps can be. Well, to me that's not particularly interesting. One other interesting way you can use something like a trap is to put small monsters. There's a great one in the Draconomicon for 3 or 3.5, where they're these like gold scarab beetles, and they look like coins, and they don't bother dragons. But when you go in there and start going through the dragon's horde, these scarabs come out, and they start attacking the players while they're in the horde, which is great, because if you have a huge bed of dragon coins, when the players they all get greedy and they're trying to grab those good items, so they're spread all out. You can just vicious a player with that treasure. I'd use that in the game, and man, it was awesome. It almost completely killed the one character who'd gotten up on it, because the other ones were so far away from him at that time. Everyone was trying to get their greediness on, and it completely changed the whole thing to this era of tension and trepidation, and they're carefully, slowly examining things, and it gave that good tension, not the slow boredom, but they're really making sure, because that's the thing that with traps, you don't want to overuse it. Less is more. It's the threat of them, and they don't need to feel that threat of traps everywhere. You don't want them checking for traps everywhere. Like, I'm out in the wilderness, check for traps. I'm not going to move or progress anywhere until I expect every 5 foot square for traps. And some Game Masters games are just that silly, where you pretty much should just check every square you're about to go into for traps before you allow your party to enter in there. But the ultimate key for traps is make sure they make sense. Come up with a reason why it's there, someone put it there, and how other things were able to exist in a world where this trap was. Don't allow them to walk down the hall 3 feet later and then remind the zombies running around. It's just stupid.